Hi, everyone. We are the Silly Mystics, and my name is Melisa Desperak, and my co-host is Fayina Cohen. Welcome, Fayina.
And you too, Melissa.
Thank you. And today's topic, there's in the lineage of some of the work that we've studied. There's this man called Rodney Collin, and he's a cornerstone of the fourth way schools, and he's part of that lineage, and he's left a treasure of work. And his birthday was recently. What was it, on the 24th, Fayina?
26th April. 26th.
It was on the 26th. So his birthday's on the 26th of April, and we want to honor him by introducing him to people who haven't heard of him, and maybe encourage people to connect to his work.
Yeah. So just to say, when he was born in, I think, 1909, and he died in the late 1950s at a very young age. He was such a prolific writer. There's many books that he left behind that are not as well known as his predecessors are Ouspensky and Gurdjieff, and people are familiar with those works, not as familiar with Rodney Collin, who was the most well-known student of Ouspensky. And there's some speculation that the very last book that he wrote was actually channeled by Ouspensky, because they were so close. So it was after Ouspensky's death. Rodney Collin was by his bedside and had the last couple of months with his teacher, received that last book, The Theory of Eternal Life, which kind of shows what happens to the soul after death and connects a lot of philosophies on, reincarnation and rebirth and karma, and all of those topics are covered. Theory of Eternal Life is one of my favorite books, but probably the book that is most well known or easier to read as a philosophy or a spiritual text is Conscious Harmony. And right. we were going to discuss one of the chapters there today that you, Melissa, thought was very relevant for our time. It almost like reads as if he's living today, even though it was written in the 50s.
Yeah, I adore his work. I mean, it's so relevant. I feel like many times it feels so current when you read it. It's so relevant to our times. And I think it'll continue to feed and inspire and guide people who are on this kind of path of awakening and trying to understand self. By the way, The Theory of Eternal Life was, to me, the key for me to enter the school. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. This is the Theory of Conscious Harmony, and as you can see, I have it marked everywhere.
Pick it up higher.
Oh, you can't see it?
Yeah, like this, yeah.
Is that good? Can you see it? And the chapter that we want to discuss today, just to give everybody just a taste, because his work encompasses so much information, is Kairos, Chronos, and Crossroads. And the reason I thought that this would be a good chapter to read, and we'll read out of this chapter, I think it's only like 3 pages, but there seems to be, and it's interesting how he talks about it a lot, that we're at the edge of something, that something is about to happen. There's an unfolding at such a huge scale, and you feel the pressure of that in everything he writes. And it's interesting that that's exactly how it feels now, that we're all sort of standing at the precipice or at new beginnings. The precipice is something new, that's something that we're evolving as a human race. That something new is possible for us that wasn't possible before. And I truly believe, this is my belief, that he tapped into this time. He wrote what he wrote for us at this time, so that we understood that we are on the edge of something, and not to doubt it, because what happens is, one of the worst things we could do is be in standing in front of the miraculous and then go, nah.
Not a big deal. Or not even
My
notice.
imagination.
Not even notice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we really are. We really are. And if you look at, I could pick any member of my family, any of my colleagues, any of my friends. Everyone is at such crossroads, which means they're in a position in their life where they have to make big decisions. And in making those decisions, their life is going to change completely. It's not going to be the same life again.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to, it's such a beautiful chapter. And if we have time, there's a chapter called New Beginnings that is also very relevant and also not very long. I don't know if you want to.
I wanted to comment on the same thing. The observation that I've had is that I do think that it recurs, this feeling that people feel like they're on the precipice. There's something about to happen. There's an anticipation of major changes, but also observing what's happened in the last year. 2018 seemed to have been a very difficult year for people struggling with anything from financial issues to relationship issues. And it's almost like it's coming to this like crescendo, like something's about to break and people are not going to be able to continue as is. This idea that there's an evolutionary jump that's about to happen. We can see it on a small scale in the people around us, but there's also that collective feeling that it's bound to happen because so many negative events are occurring. It's almost like we can't continue as is. Something has to shift. So usually there is at the crossroads of life, and Rodney Collin talks about it too, is an opportunity. It's not like a regular Chronos is like chronology of time. Things are just happening sequentially. It's like the daily routine. But this idea of Kairos time, it's a time of opportunity, a time of change, a time of transformation. It's as if nature itself or the spirit realm is pushing us. We need to transform on a much larger scale. Humanity needs to transform. And it starts with our individual lives. So we see it here on the individual level, and we're observing it, on a macro level around us. So Rodney really speaks to that in all of his works, especially in this in this chapter that you're mentioning from Conscious Harmony, but also in his other book, The Theory of Celestial Influence, which is another book I'd recommend, even though it's more technical. But really to see patterns around us and then start to observe them, everywhere else, because you're going to start to hear that same, people are just feeling it. Like there's a sense of, people are sensing a pattern. Some of my clients will even ask me, do you have this happening to your other clients? And I'd be like, yes, they're dealing with a lot of major crises and difficulties and suffering that's pushing them into decisions that they absolutely have to make because life cannot continue as is.
And like a lot of his, the big word that he uses in a lot of his books is harmony. And I think that's what it's all about, is that when things are not in harmony, something has to happen. There is something that comes in because everything has to return to a state of harmony. And because that's the natural state.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to observe that not everything that I've been, the conflicts that people have been having with relationships, with all the conflicts is not necessarily ending in an implosion or an explosion and a separation. Actually, things are actually changing where people are they're shifting. People are shifting. They're becoming more awake, more aware, and they're actually choosing harmony and integration and community and tribe, which is beautiful to watch. That's my observation. My observation is maybe, because when he wrote this, as a humanity, we had a lot of work to do. And I feel like where we stand now, there's so much more awareness. People are a lot more alert and people are awakening. And I feel that now they're choosing differently. They're starting to realize that there is another choice. It's not just about separation. It's also about probably coming together in a beautiful new way with the people in your life.
And you know what, I was just thinking that how the internet, right, has become this opportunity for us to interconnect, right? The interconnectedness of humanity through technology, through the sharing of information, and shared experience is also helping us see that we can seek help, be a part of a community, you know, and notice that we're not the only ones dealing with something. You know, it's not just happening to me, it's happening to so many people. It's happening to my planet, it's happening to my tribe, you know, and I really feel that it's funny that our teacher Mervyn used to speak about the internet. I mean, he was still alive when it was first invented, and he would say that, you know, this technology is actually showing what we are on a soul level. We're
Right.
totally connected, and now we have this physical manifesting of, you know, our souls created what we needed to remember, the interconnectedness of all.
Yeah, there is something right now. So talking about Crossroads and Kairos.
Yeah.
I feel the Chronos is collapsing. I think time is collapsing. I would believe that we're starting to connect to all parts of ourselves and all our timelines. And I think that's important because we're starting to integrate as individuals. We're starting to collapse everything and starting to integrate into a oneness within ourselves so that we can connect as a oneness, as tribe and community. What's happening, I feel, is galactic. It's cosmic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the planets are doing some crazy stuff, right? And the planets are within us as well. So I find that a vast majority of us are on a crossroads, meaning we're standing there and we know we have to make choices. We can't stay where we are. We have to go right, left, or whatever the decision is. But there's also behind it a Kairos. There's this ticking, there's this something that is happening that if we are, it's kind of like, let me take myself as an example. I know I have to make a major decision in my life, but I also know that I can't know the answer yet, that I have to wait for Kairos. I have to wait for the right moment and the right timing when I am certain. Well, I'm totally certain. So I feel like if you ever look at the tarot cards, there's a woman on the two of swords where she's blindfolded, holding two swords. So she's in control. She's got two swords, but she doesn't know which way to go yet. And I think a lot of us are there. And what I'd like to encourage our audience to do is stay at the crossroads. Don't make a decision, because there is going to be the right moment, the right timing, and you're going to know exactly what you need to do.
Right. All you know is that you can't keep going where you were. You need to make a right or a left turn. And it's funny that when I work with my clients, I often have them in this place of they're confused between A and B. Should I stay? Should I go? Should I, you know, it's about work. It's about marriages. It's about financial decisions. And they're going back and forth. And it's almost like asking, like you were saying, for some sort of blind trust and faith that the universe has our back and we are going to make the right choice, because it is an opportune moment. It's now. It's not going to, it's like 5 years from now, you're going to be in the daily routine and not have these choices. But being faced with a choice, a major life change or decision, is actually an incredible time of being that really helps you reconnect to who you are, to asking for higher help. Because I think in that chapter, Rodney speaks about that it's a time for demanding higher help. We're not here alone. We're not here alone. Whether it's about prayer, whether it's about using the law of attraction or manifesting and really using our possibility of being the creative force, the divinity within, to create our lives. But there's a push. Like that crossroad to me, it's a push. That's it. You've come this far. You've invested in your life until this point. We've done our research, our studying, our healing, and life has pushed us here.
Right.
And what's next? Most of us don't know yet, but we know it's not going to be the same. That's what it keeps coming up. And I see it even in my own career. Like I've been doing pretty much the same thing for many, many years, psychotherapist, hypnotherapy, coaching, all of that. And there is a feeling that I'm meant to shift, maybe to expand and go into something else. And it's an inner push, an inner crossroad. And I don't know what it means yet. I just know that a big change is coming. It feels very relevant.
I love what you said, Fayina, and I just want to remind our audience, you need to demand and ask for answers, to ask for help, There is so much that's something I learned. I came to, I did that. I literally, I was in a situation where I was, really did not know which way to go, on a much smaller scale of what I'm facing now. And I asked, I demanded, I said, I really need help. And that next morning when I woke up, I had all the answers. And so we need to demand, we need to ask. We have guidance, ask for help. And it's also to put aside your fears and try to focus on what it is that you want. What is the desired outcome in your life? So that you can start manifesting that as well. Because, he talks about that when we read some of his quotes, is that when everything that you've been longing for, everything that you've desired up until the point when you finally come to the crossroads, then there's a possibility of that. But it's important to have that be present to that, whatever that is, that you want to create and manifest in your life.
Do you want to read something just to have like a quote from Rodney Collin that we can refer to?
Sure. Excuse me.
Yeah.
1 second.
The intellectual Melisa. I mean, we have to substantiate all of this conversation based on actually studying Rodney Collin and loving him.
Yeah. He's amazing. Like I didn't even tag the chapter because everything is amazing.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can find one to start. Okay, this one I actually posted on Facebook. I'm gonna read it because it's really amazing.
Please.
From time to time, one reaches a point where the pressure of life seems almost unbearable. The important thing is to keep the flavor of the new and the longing for the miraculous in spite of everything. Sooner or later, circumstances change, a crack opens in life, and new possibilities again present themselves. But what enters at that moment depends exactly upon what one has been longing for during the time when nothing out of the ordinary was happening. We have spoken many times about crossroads in life. Between one crossroads and another, one cannot change roads, only go on in the same direction. Shall we arrive at the next crossroads tomorrow, in 6 months, or in 5 years? We do not know. We can only be ready to reach it at any moment. And by ready, he means is what you are actually longing for in the times that you're waiting in between the moments that something is possible.
What just came to me is this idea that maybe those crossroads in time is when we are closest to our inner world, our soul's guidance. If we think that a desire or a goal comes from that inner knowing of what's best for us and it's guiding us, that at the crossroad is when that veil is lifted. There is more of not an ego-driven life, but a kind of a soul-driven or purpose-driven life. Because when I'm often hearing, in again, with my clients in the conversations I'm having with them, between one decision and another is usually that one decision is less in alignment with who they were. It's in alignment with who they were, and the next one is in alignment with who they're becoming. Possibly that's what I'm beginning to see. Or that they are more tuned into that essence self, that harmony is body, soul, spirit aligned. And so they're being pushed into a specific direction or pushed into that choice so that they're more in line with their higher self, with higher values, or even, higher values or a deeper purpose and deeper meaning. I was just like seeing the veil lifting somehow during that time, something shifts. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. It makes total sense that when, we have guidance. So there's no doubt we have guidance, angelic, spirit, masters. And when we're at crossroads, it makes sense that they have more access to us in those moments, right? That we have a much clearer connection with our guidance. And that we're in touch with our own divine part as well.
Yeah.
To push us into something new that is wanting to evolve, but it's uncomfortable because it's new, it's unknown. And sometimes we need that extra push to help us step into the unknown, and not go back and repeat, because what happens at Crossroads, you can continue to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. What you want to do when you're at a crossroads is to choose differently.
Perhaps all our work is but preparation, so that as many as possible shall take advantage of that opportunity when it comes. The work now is the projection of harmony on every scale, beginning with the achievement of harmony within oneself. The more harmony can be realized and understood, the more fully will this new opportunity be taken, and the more some parallel disaster will be diminished. Yeah, I wanted to share something, because what was coming to me is the question that people come to me with, and I have myself. When there's a crossroad or a time of confusion, where do I go? What's happening? And then there's this inner pressure, that you must move forward. You can't just stay where you are. That one of the things that he talks about, and we're talking about Chronos is a time, chronological time, moving forward. And Kairos is the time where it's divine timing. This is the opportunity. Something opens, right? Let's say the veil lifts, something opens. A time where you do have that connection, like you were saying, to the higher realms. What does one do in those moments? And it reminded me, Rodney Collin often spoke about vertical time. Vertical time is the here and now. And what happens in those crossroad moments is the pressure to fully step into the vertical time, into the now, so that you can be fully connected to who you are, fully connected to that divine guidance. And only through that state can you make a decision that is going to be the right decision. If you do not make the right decision, chances are that you're going to go right back into the Chronos time, chronologically living your life until another crossroad or a recurrent kind of scenario occurs, and you'll be pushed into the exact same decision that you missed out on to begin with. So unless we really step into that moment in time as a vertical timeline, it traverses, like you said, collapsing all timelines, and something higher enters. Now, I personally, what I use, and I wanted to share because I actually did it today, is going into that present or meditative state that we talk about, like the moment that you know that your higher self is here, that present awareness, opening myself up, and then listening to the messages that come by writing them down. Because I got such a clear message today about something. I was asking how come, I was like, why is it that my practice is not reflecting the type of people that I really want to serve? I have a very different profile coming to me, and it's been pushing me into redirecting how I market myself or how I present myself. And I got this message from the universe. It's because you've been confused what you're actually out there doing. It has to be a clear message. So I got the message from from that moment that I've been feeling a push, like I need to find, but it has to do with my lack of clarity within myself. So I need to sit down much more often and just write out, who are the clients I want to serve? What's the best fit? I'm not a fit for all. None of us are. And our life is not a fit for all. It's like we create a very individual life for ourselves, even though we're part of a collective. But it was only in that moment that I started to just wow, I'm getting the messages. I've been stuck for so long. I'm seeing the problem, but I'm not seeing where I'm supposed to be going. To write down, to do that automatic, almost like automatic writing, receiving messages from the higher. And time stood still in that moment. It was just okay, just reconnect, plug in right now, vertical time, your soul speaking to you from eternity. Because the soul is outside of time. So that vertical line is a connection to our inner world, or our soul, our eternal self. And the answer is
connecting to people who sometimes don't really know what they want, and so maybe they need to come to the crossroads several times until they actually come to it saying, I know what I want, and to be clear. Mm-hmm. But there is, think about young kids who come out of school and they're not clear as to what they really want. They don't have this like really deep, honest desire for the direction in their life. So that it's going to be a little bit of coming to they come to a lot of crossroads very fast, right?
Sure.
Because they're in those transitory stages of their life. But yes, absolutely. Thank you.
And sometimes there's a push, right? There's some sort of uncomfortable, life throws this uncomfortable circumstance that pushes them into a place where they don't really want to go, but it winds up being exactly where they need to be. Whether it's moving geographically or taking on a job in a field they never considered, you know, thinking, oh, that's not really what I went to school for. And then you wind up meeting the right person or the right opportunity that actually sets you up with something you're much more in line with, but you didn't know. That's why I say I trust, you know, I trust that sometimes life does push us into a specific direction without us choosing it. There is a flow. I was just thinking how in the book, the new beginning chapter is preceded by death, the idea of something having to die before something new is born within us. And I often see new beginnings as a shedding of like old clothing, shedding of old skin. Like an old self dies in order for this new self to emerge that we could never go back to. You know, having had a major life change in myself after going through a divorce and seeing myself like the life before and the life after, seeing myself as a completely different individual. A part of me died before I could kind of recreate myself with a new identity. So death preceding new beginnings. And the same idea as a crossroad is that you're no longer on the road you were on. You're going to follow a different path. So it's an ending of something.
Yeah.
So let me see if there's something here.
Can I read something?
Yeah.
Many people are waiting, expecting. They feel themselves on the edge of a new era, and they feel that quite new things are expected of them, but they don't know what. And I just find it interesting that he wrote this on February 7th of 1955. And if he feels like, wait, that's now, you know?
I'm sure that that statement is relevant for many times in history where things are just percolating. You know?
Yes, I agree. And I think he knows that too. When he wrote this, he is actually aware that is going to be relevant to anyone at any time. Like there is those moments of Kairos that's going to come throughout time in a chronological order.
You know, there is this theory of collapsing time or how the future creates the past, that people of that era or different times in the past were actually channeling the future, knowing that they're preparing, they're leaving behind some sort of manual for future generations. You know, it's believed that Leonardo da Vinci kind of foresaw in his inspiration or in his dreams future technologies, and he was able to transcribe it. And perhaps great writers like Shakespeare, you know, knew they're writing for the audience of today, and Rodney Collins was writing for us as well. You know,
you're a hypnotist, and you do past life regression. So we have experience in taking clients into past lives, and I've seen
future lives,
and it's just unbelievably incredible what I've witnessed with clients. But I had an experience. What I want to say is, and it's kind of emotional when you said that, yeah. I know for sure that that's true. Like, it's not even, for me, it's not like, oh, maybe. No.
Yeah.
There are some people, if you could do it with a client, right, is extremely powerful. But there are some people who are completely aware that they were not in time, they were outside of time, and they were connecting to, it's kind of like being in a time machine. And I'm going to tell you a quick story why I'm saying that I know for sure. This person told me something. A friend of mine told me something that as a medium, And she described the scenario that I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. It made absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
And 12 years later, I lived it exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So when I thought about it, I knew that the guide who came through, who showed it, because it came from one my higher guidance, who was showing this to me, was trying to prove to me, without doubt, that there's no such thing as time. He was present in that moment with me in a future moment, and he was connecting me. It was just an unbelievable experience. So I know for sure that time is, for, in this 3D matrix on Earth, is an illusion to us. It's not real. And that there's so much that means so much, right?
Yeah.
That means you can collapse experiences.
I want to share one too. I have something to share also. No, you finish your thoughts. I just have.
I'm done. I'm so excited.
No, I want to share an experience I had as a child. So I had, when I was about 11 years old, I was in camp and I was bullied by somebody there. I had this moment. I lived in fear of this girl who was always bullying me, and she confronted me alone somewhere in camp. She just kind of came up to me and she said that she's going to beat me up. Like, she was intimidating me. I'm going to beat you up. Expect it when you least expect it. And I thought she was going to gang up on me and beat me up. And she just really intimidated me. Anyway, bullying. And I remember that the next time that I saw her, so I was in fear of this girl. The next time that I saw her again alone, I remember like a very strange experience where time stood still. I was not coached by anyone and didn't talk to anybody about being bullied. All of a sudden, I felt something enter me, and it just kind of looked her straight in the eye and said, "I'm not afraid of you. Go ahead. Tell on me. I'm not scared," or whatever. I just had this really strong, courageous self that entered and spoke to her in a way that she started to get really scared. I felt like an adult self came in. My adult self from the future came in and said, "Don't mess with me. I'm not scared of you. In fact, I'm going to go to the director of the camp and tell on you. And I'm not scared if you're going to beat me up. Try me." I was like, try. And all of a sudden, I felt like I'm bigger than her. I'm going to beat her up. She's so funny. I felt like an adult in that moment. And I really believe that it was my adult self that came back and just
you connected that. Yeah.
Confronted her. It was like a parental self. Like, this is what a parent would say to another child. Like, "Don't mess with her, you little twerp," And I was just a kid. So it was my future. I believe it's my future self that came in.
Future self, or it also could be your divine self, right?
My
Your
divine
divine
self.
higher self, which is more in connection with you now. Like, you're more connected to that part. As a person who's been on a seeker, and that what it is like to anchor your wisdom and your higher part, that is probably calling in who you are now to that little girl in the past.
But in a way, it was like the pressure and the fear and all of those circumstances, the pressure cooker that sometimes we feel in life because of circumstance and any stage of life, sometimes allows for accessing of that divine self or that higher self, like you're saying. Like, the intervention just came through when it was needed. And after that moment,
it's like the sweat lodge experience.
What?
It's like the sweat lodge experience, right?
Yeah, something comes in, exactly. Like the sweat lodge experience. Something comes in. So it's about trusting ourselves. We do have this inner resource, this inner guide, this inner strength that can help us in very difficult circumstances. And it's very transformational, because from that moment on, I never had a fear of bullies. I was never bullied again, and I understood in that moment where her bullying came from. Like, I almost understood her, why she needed to bully me, somebody that she considered to be weaker. But then it turned out that I was stronger because I was able to access that part. That was the end of bullying for me.
Wow. Pretty amazing.
It was actually really, wish I could teach other kids that. All
I
you
was
have
going to
to
say,
do
you should have a circuit and go around and teach, teach kids how
even
to like
adults,
not be bullied.
adults get bullied too. We know that, right?
Yes, yes.
How do we get
What
to
was it?
bullying from Rodney Collin to bullying? Melissa, we have such a range, such a scale. We have such a scale of topics that we can discuss. I love it.
Oh my God.
Oh my
And no,
God.
and this man, I mean, he's what an incredible being. I mean, honestly, he left us such treasure. I'm going to read this other one. I think it's kind of related to the one I read before. We're moving into a new phase on a very big scale indeed.
Indeed.
A change in influence far beyond the planets.
Mm-hmm.
We must never forget that we're passing into a new age. To play the part that we are prepared for, we have to belong to the future and free ourselves from the past in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working on a very long time scale, whether we like it or not. And I like that because one of the things that you were talking about before, and I kept saying, I want to remember to say it, that when you're on a crossroads and you're making a decision, you can make a decision to be free. A lot of times when we choose the way we've chosen in the past, we go back into the same chains and the same circumstances that we work so hard to come to at a crossroads to make a new decision, but we don't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's recurrence. But if you come to the crossroads and you're aware, right, you have some wisdom when you come to it, and you could choose in a different way. You could actually be free. Yeah. It's all about freedom and harmony.
Amen to that.
Amen to that. So pray for me. I need a lot of people to pray for me.
Listen, we practice what we preach, right? We go into the dirt of life from the practical to the esoteric.
And the thing is, the fears that we deal with, like when we're in the 3D matrix, we're dealing with the fears of loneliness, of lack of security, of not feeling self-love. I mean, we're dealing with all of these things as humanity. We have all of these things. So when we come to a crossroads,
crossroads are good.
All those things are bubbled under, right? You know, you don't feel abundant, you don't feel secure, you don't feel loved. And then you start to grab onto something thinking that that's going to make you fill a void. And in the meantime, we can't choose that way. We got to choose the way that honors who we are. Without fear.
Who are we?
Who are you?
Who are we? Who are we?
This special. Special.
Who are we? Who are you? You know who that is? Who are you? Caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh my God, I'm listening to you going like this. Wait, you're supposed to have like a cigarette or something.
Who or who are you? Who are you? Are you this physical being? Yes. And
we're so much more. We're so much more. We are and we're not. We're so much more.
This being human is a party.
What does that remind me of? This being human.
Is a guest house, Rumi.
Ah, the guest house.
This being human is a party.
Of course, Rumi has to come up.
Love Rumi.
I love Rumi. What wisdom. So many teachers. We have so many teachers out there. They left such treasure of art, music, poetry.
I know, and we really want to open up for the younger audience. You know, there's a lot of new age teachers and they're speaking the same language of the wisdom that's left behind by people that lived hundreds of years ago, and they're still just as relevant. You know, bringing Rodney Collin to discovery and to more popularity is really, I think it's important that he's known because his writings are incredible.
Yeah. Yeshua.
I'm Shua. I think it's time to say goodbye. I'm Shua.
Okay, let's say goodbye.
Ciao.
Ciao, Bella.
Ciao, Bella.